It's time. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Low End University. Fugazi has been highly requested here on the channel, specifically the track Waiting Room, which is apparently their most popular song according to their bio. Now, I have heard the name Fugazi over the years in magazines and in passing, but I've never listened. So this will be my introduction into the band and feels like a logical next step in my punk rock discovery. But reading a quick tidbit about the band, it says, Fugazi was a punk rock band formed in Washington, D.C. in 1986 who were noted for their style-transcending music, DIY ethical stance and manner of practice, and contempt for the music industry. I have a bit of that myself. But Waiting Room is from their compilation album 13 Songs, released in 1989. Now, I typically don't comment on the album art or the album name when it pops up here, but I have to say, this is a really bold statement. Just red, Fugazi, 13 songs. I mean, it kind of has that bold statement like a self-titled does, but I feel like just calling it 13 songs takes it up a notch. But it says that this is a compilation album from a previous EP called Fugazi, so kind of getting my history on the band straight here. But without further ado, let's get to it. Fugazi, Waiting Room. Ooh, that's a sexy groove. Okay, that part is not in unison. The guitar kind of mirrors that bass riff, just this first little bit, but it adds a different note. It kind of has this little bit of clash going on here. Let me go back and hear that again. It was really cool to hear that bass tone kind of isolated. Clearly has a pick usage here. That note, the guitar just kind of rubs with it. Okay, we're down here in C sharp. No, it's A. So kind of in C sharp minor here. Let's keep going. That was a dramatic suspense. Right out of the gate like that. Trying to get where that phrase starts and ends. There's just some dissonance between the guitar and the bass. It's kind of more of a muffled mix right there, but I like that. It just gives kind of an unsettling feeling, but that bass groove has just a really strong anchor around C sharp minor. When that guitar comes in, I kind of lose where the bass starts and ends, but it's really, really cool feeling it's setting up here. Maybe the bass changes a little bit there, but nonetheless, that was actually a pretty cool, unexpected thing. You know, usually when it ramps up in these punk rock songs I've heard so far, Rancid, Operation Ivy, NoFX, it starts going into the double time, kind of like, I call it thrash metal drums, but that could be any genre, but it just da-da-da-da-da-da. I was expecting it to go dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and just go into the usual punk thing, but I like this big, kind of weighty halftime thing there. Kind of had a more like metal feel almost. Right here. It's weighty. It's kind of cool. Anything on that E? Cool. So far, I'm getting this kind of more raw approach. You know, this sounds like what I thought punk music sounded like. It's interesting so far. This was more like Operation Ivy Rancid. It's not upbeat and fast, but it's got that kind of just edgy. The whole production just has teeth on it, right? Whereas No Effects had this really kind of polished, I don't want to say pop element. Some of you guys don't like when I say pop and punk in the same sentence, but I'm more referring to the production, a little more polished. I like this kind of roomy sound. And they're using some dissonance. That's kind of the backbone of the song. The guitar part and the bass part are kind of having this, like, I don't know if it's a major second, but it sounds like the guitar goes up to an A flat while the bass is still on E and F sharp. So you kind of get this like, just for a split second in there. And they're kind of doing this thing. And I don't want to try to figure out the guitar part too much, but it's cool that it returns to that because it feels unresolved. But nonetheless, this sounds like older school of a punk sound based on the vocals, the bass sound. So I think my challenge at this point, learning all these punk songs and hearing them, is kind of figuring out where they fit into the whole punk story. Because I'm learning, based on your comments, that there are just a ton of subgenres in this family tree. And somebody even said, I didn't write down whom, but the more you try to label a punk band, the harder it gets and the more labels you innately create in the process. So it's one big expression, but I like the variety between the bands you guys are requesting. Thank you guys again. It's such a cool thing because this is really different from like the Decline, which I did last week. But let's keep going and back it up a bit. And the last thing I want to say is that this older school punk, they make such great use of just their instruments. They're getting these plinkety plink kind of effects from the guitar. I need to hear that part again. But they're not diving into like electronic digital sounds to, add these soundscapes. They're just using what they already have in a creative way. Talking about this part right here. Like, they didn't dabble into some synth or something. They just, I don't know, it sounded like sometimes when you pluck the strings up here, you get that kind of plinky sound, little muted percussive things. It's just a cool additional way to get a different sound out of the instruments you have in such a simplified setup, guitar, bass, drums. It's a cool dual vocal thing there. That is an interesting vocal. Okay, these vocals, like, they were cool. They sounded about the way I thought they would as the song started. They're getting really layered and dense here. And it's actually interesting because, as I was saying earlier, they haven't gone into that just full bore sound. The instruments have remained pretty static in their parts, but it sounds like instead of the drums and the bass and the guitar getting more intense, it's like these vocals are getting more intense because it started out with just a single kind of vocal track. And now we have these big layers. I'm hearing this kind of like call and response thing. And the production on the vocals oddly reminds me of like Alice in Chains in the way they're produced. They have this big kind of distant reverbed sound, verbed, however you want to say it. It's interesting. It gives it a really roomy depth to the song. I want to go back and hear this part when it comes in and pay a little more attention to the vocals. That's really neat. This part. Ooh, stripped it down a little bit there. Really interesting. So I was reading a bit more about the band real quick, and I'm realizing that they were pretty influential in the punk scene in general. The time period, the attitude, the sound, the accolades and achievements the band has had. And that makes a lot of sense because when I think about the sound of just raw traditional punk, this kind of fits right into that. And this is again more of that more more raw sound with some teeth on it, not so produced, and that embodies the spirit of punk as I think I know it. And something about that bass intro, just having those 4, maybe 5 notes is catchy. You know, when you do a bass intro and it becomes the backbone of the song, it tends to be stuck in your head. Just love the pacing of that. It's so simple, understated, and I'm interested to figure out how the guitar part was kind of weaving in and out of it. I love the kind of soundscape that made. There was just a little bit of clashing going on in the notes, which adds to the whole vibe of the song. But thank you for requesting Fugazi's Waiting Room. This has actually been requested many, many months ago and only recently has been really ramped up as I started doing the punk videos. So I am loving just fitting into my own punk rock discovery, and you guys have all the credit for leading me here and steering me where to go. So let me know what I should do next. I would love to get to as many as I can because this is truly a musical awakening for me personally. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to hang out and watch and listen with me. Please make sure you like the video, subscribe. I'm also on Patreon now if you want to go over there for some reactions you can't find here, lessons, and much more. I love you all. Cheers, and we will see you next time.